Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. Now before we hop into this one, I would like to just remind you guys that there is a giveaway going on and there is only 6 days left, so you guys need to make sure you enter it because it is a $75 RP giveaway. I'm doing this giveaway with a couple of my league buddies, Mathios, Rezone Games, and Verkayu, so you guys should definitely check them out because if you guys do follow them on all of these things listed here, you will get more entries and therefore have a higher chance of winning. They all make some really solid content, and if you guys want as many entries as possible to win, make sure you follow everybody you see on your screen. The link is down in the video description. But now let's hop into the champion guide, and today I'll be covering top lane Dr. Mundo, the madman of Zaun.
Mundo, smash!
Alright, so let's kick off this champion guide by first looking at Dr. Mundo's pros. So Dr. Mundo is of course a very tanky champion with some really high sustain. He gets some really nice regeneration from his passive, and of course whenever he activates his ultimate, he gets an insane amount of regeneration. With his tanky build, he's insanely hard to bring down. Because of this, he is a pretty strong team fighter, and he is a really strong split pusher as well because not a lot of people can 1v1 Mundo, and he does have some nice AoE from his W. Mundo's E ability then finally makes him really strong against AP teams. It is magic resist that stacks a couple of times, so against those high AP teams, they're going to do even less damage, and Mundo isn't really going to die. Now as for his cons, Mundo is a fairly weak early game champion. He of course won't be that tanky in the early game, so he can't take too much damage, and his abilities do cost health, and that's pretty hard for Mundo to deal with in the early game. He's then a fairly kiteable champion as well. He does have a really nice slow on his Q, but it is rather dodgeable, and people can kite Mundo rather easily. He's also a pretty weak champion when he is behind. If he's not able to soak a lot of damage and doesn't have time to get the regeneration off from his ultimate, he's going to die insanely quickly. Finally, since he is a very tanky champion and relies on taking a lot of abuse, he's really weak against tank melters like Vayne. If he's not able to take a lot of damage from the enemy team, he's not going to be that strong. For my runes, I like to go Resolve and Inspiration, grabbing Grasp of the Undying as my keystone. This gives Mundo even more healing as long as you're auto-attacking, so it gives him even more lane sustain. At the same time, it will make your next basic attack deal more magic damage every 4 seconds, so it's also great at trading with the enemy. I then like to pick up Bone Plating, reduce damage from the enemy team, and then get Conditioning, so after 10 minutes I get 8 more armor and magic resist. Then finally I like to pick up Revitalize, so my healing is even stronger. In the inspiration side, I like to pick up Magical Footwear so I get free boots at 10 minutes, and then get Cosmic Insight to reduce my cooldowns. This is pretty strong because your ultimate was nerfed and it does have a longer cooldown, so this will allow you to use it even more. In this gameplay, however, I was playing around with Precision, and it is a pretty solid alternative as well. I usually like to go for Inspiration, but Precision is also really strong. For my first summoner spell, I like to pick up Flash. Although you are a very tanky champion, Flash is still really solid in situations to save your life if you do get caught in a bad position. Since Mundo does also have a pretty strong slow ability, you can always flash forward as well if somebody is really far away from you, slow them with your cleaver, and then follow up onto the enemy champion. Now as for my second summoner spell, I basically always take Teleport. Since Mundo is a pretty solid split pusher, you will be able to spend a lot of time in those side lanes split pushing, and if you do need to join a team fight or an objective, you can simply teleport there and join the fight. If you felt like you didn't need Flash, you could of course go for Ghost instead, but usually I'll just stick with Flash. Mundo's passive ability is Adrenaline Rush, which just simply gives him extra regeneration. This is based on 0.3% of your maximum health each second, so this obviously scales when you go into the game. If you pick up something like a Sunfire Cape and a Warmogs, anything that has health on it, it gets even stronger as the game progresses. Other than that though, there's not too much to say about the ability. It is nice during the lane phase because of course you get a little bit of extra regeneration, but it gets stronger and stronger as you progress through the game. Next up is Mundo's Q ability, Infected Cleaver. This makes Mundo hurl a cleaver in the target direction and deals magic damage to the first enemy it hits and slows them for 40% for 2 seconds. This ability also deals % target current health damage, so it's great at poking the enemy champion throughout the lane phase, and it's great of course against those tankier targets. This allows Mundo to be pretty damn effective in that top lane. It does also cost you a part of your health, so you have to be very careful when using it, but you do get half of it refunded if you hit an enemy, and all of it refunded if you kill an enemy. That means it's also great for last hitting minions throughout that lane phase, but generally you want to poke with it as much as you can on the enemy champion, because it also provides a slow, which will allow you to collapse onto them and get off the rest of your damage. Next would be Mundo's W, Burning Agony. When you toggle this ability, you will set yourself on fire and deal magic damage to nearby enemies, and also be granted tenacity, which means of course you break out of crowd controls a little bit quicker. This deals magic damage every half second, and the tenacity scales from 10 to 30%. This ability does cost you health per second, so you do have to be very careful when you are using it, especially in the early game because you won't have a lot of regeneration yet. This is a really solid ability when you are clearing through big minion waves as well, because of course you can activate this, and if you do have a Sunfire cape, you will deal some pretty significant AoE damage, taking them down really quickly. In teamfights and trades, of course, you will want to activate this as well, so you will break out of those crowd controls a little bit quicker, and of course deal magic damage to any enemies around you. Next, we've got Dr. Mundo's E ability, Masochism. Now this here is also a really strong ability because passively you will be granted extra magic resistance, and when you activate it, you get bonus attack damage. Whenever you take magic damage or pay a health cost, which is any of your abilities, you will get magic resist by 2% for 2 seconds and stacks up to a certain amount, which is up to 30% at max rank. That means in those long duration team fights in the later stages of the game, if you're against a high AP team, you're going to take pretty much no damage. Now when you activate it, you get bonus attack damage for 5 seconds, which is increased based on your missing health. The bonus physical damage is based on between 3 and 5% of your maximum health as well, so it will do a lot of damage in the later stages of the game when you have a high health build. So when you're going for trades on the enemy team, or of course you are trying to last hit under tower, you will want to activate this ability for that bonus attack damage. Keep in mind that this does also reset your auto attack timer, so you want to follow it after an auto attack to pump out as much damage as possible. And finally, that brings us to our ultimate, Sadism. So this here is a really strong ultimate because you will be granted total regeneration of between 50 and 100% of your maximum health. This will however cost you 25% of your current health, so you want to try to use it when you are rather low on health, but you want to make sure it has a chance to kick in the regeneration, so not too low. Now Mundo will also be granted a bunch of bonus movement speed, and that scales from between 15 and 35%. That means this is really strong in either team fights when you do dip kind of low, or as an escape. Use this to get a lot of regeneration and get your health pool back, and to run away from the enemy champions if needed, or of course you can get to those squishier targets in a team fight if you need to do that as well. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then focus on maxing your Q ability first because it's fantastic at poking the enemy champion, or of course last hitting minions. Now second, you could max either your W or your E ability, but I usually like to max my E ability second because it does do a lot of damage and it really has a nice scaling magic resist on it as well. Your W is viable as a second max as well if there is a lot of crowd controls on the enemy team because of the scaling tenacity. Usually, however, I like to save my W for last, just take a point in it at level 4 so you can use it to clear minion waves, or of course for that extra tenacity. In the lane phase, you'll first want to focus on farming as much as possible. Mundo is a fairly weak champion early on until you get some of your tankier items, so you need to get them as quickly as you can so you can actually take in damage from the enemy team. You'll then want to try to farm and trade as much as you can with your Q ability. The health is refunded whenever you kill a minion, so it's great for farming, and of course it does a nice chunk of damage, so it's great at poking. When you do get on top of the enemy champion, make sure you activate your E to do extra damage because it has a really nice bonus attack damage based on your maximum health. Then you'll want to activate your W for tenacity if you are against a champion that has crowd controls. Finally, if you do end up dipping low, you can activate your R for that extra regeneration, or if you do need some movement speed to chase the enemy champion, you could always use it in that scenario. In teamfights, you will of course want to activate your W for its tenacity and its AoE burn. There will usually be at least some forms of crowd control on that enemy team, and this will help you get out of them quicker. Now, if you can, before the teamfight actually starts, you want to poke the enemies as much as you can with your Q. This can do a pretty significant amount of damage and give your team a really nice advantage at the start of the teamfight. When you do get some fairly low health, you want to make sure you activate your R for all of that extra regeneration, and the movement speed can help you reposition during the teamfight. Finally, when you are on top of your target, make sure you activate your E so you do get an extra chunk of attack damage so you can start outputting your damage. Now let's look at some of your hard matchups, and first up is Quinn. Quinn is going to be pretty hard for you because of course she is a ranged champion that does a lot of damage and she can easily kite you. As long as she can dodge your cleavers, there's pretty much no chance of you getting on top of Quinn. The best you can do is rush some armor items and some regeneration items, make it through the lane phase because you are a really strong team fighter. Next up, I've got Wukong. He can be pretty irritating for you because he has some really quick trades and can easily get out afterwards with his W. He can even use his W, which is decoy, to create an image of himself to block your cleaver, so it's going to be really hard to get on top of him if you can block all of your cleavers with this ability. You should be able to fight him in the later stages of the game, so just try to get your core build and then fight him there. For the next hard matchup here, I've got Camille. She's a pretty hard matchup for you because she does a lot of damage on her Q ability, and some of it is true damage. Whenever she does use her ultimate on you, she does bonus magic damage which is based off of current health, so it will do a lot of damage against a high health target like Mundo. Against her, you probably have to play pretty passively in lane, just build up your tankiness because fighting her in lane is usually not too good of an idea. And for the last hard matchup, we've got Olaf. Olaf is a fairly hard matchup primarily because of your E ability. It does a nice chunk of true damage, so even if you build a lot of armor, he will do a lot of damage to his target. He is a champion that also excels in those longer duration fights as well. He gets a lot of attack speed and bonus lifesteal if he is on low health with his W activated, so you have to be very careful when he does activate this ability. Alright, with all that covered, let's look at the item build, which starts with a Doran Shield, Health Potion, and a Warding Totem. Since Mundo is not the best early game champion, this will give you bonus defensives to make it through the early stages of the game until you get some tankiness. For your core build, we have the Sunfire Cape, Spirit Visage, and your choice of boots. The Sunfire Cape is really strong early in the top lane because it will give you some bonus burn, and when you combine it with your W, you'll do a lot of AoE damage, which is great in trades and of course clearing up those minion waves. You'll then want to pick up a Spirit Visage because of course you have some nice healing on your passive and your ultimate as well, so this will give you even more healing and make you stronger in the lane phase and in team fights. Now as for your boots, I'd pretty much always go for either Ninja Tabbies or Merc Treads. Against those high AD champions that rely on basic attacks, I would pick up the Ninja Tabbies, but against high AP and CC heavy teams, I'd go for Merc Treads. Now for your item pool, we first of course have the Warmogs. This is pretty much a core item on Mundo. I pretty much pick it up all the time because you get a really nice health pool and even more regeneration, so you'll pretty much be on full health even after team fights. Now next you have some really solid armor options in either the Thornmail, Randuin's, or a Deadman's Plate. I really like the Thornmail because of course it does have the Reflect and the Grievous Wounds, but Randuin's is really strong against high crit teams because you of course have that crit reduce, and Deadman's Plate is great for solid mobility. If you instead needed some magic resist, you could of course go for the Adaptive Helm. This is a really solid item against champions that spam the same ability over and over again like Ryze or Cassiopeia. If you wanted a different magic resist option that also increased your damage, you could go for Abyssal Mask. This is a pretty decent option for magic resist that also gives you 10% more damage, so it's great in that scenario. If you instead wanted a little bit of extra split push power or sieging power, you could get the Banner of Command. This will help you buff a minion, so if you are having trouble split pushing or you need to push into the enemy base, it's a fantastic option. Then finally, if you need a really solid defensive that has both armor and magic resist, you can get the Gargoyle Stoneplate. This will make you take insanely reduced damage when you do activate the ability, so it's going to be really strong in team fights and it's a really solid defensive. For my example fill build though, I take that core build with some Ninja Tabbies and then get the Warmogs, Thornmail, and a Gargoyle Stoneplate. You'll be an incredibly tanky champion, and when you do activate Gargoyle Stoneplate, you'll pretty much be unkillable. Some of your damage is of course based on your maximum health as well, so you will be dishing out a pretty decent amount of damage when you do have this build as well. And that covers everything I've got for top lane Dr. Mundo. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching. I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.